What is up, everybody? Welcome to the College Football Print Factory Show. We're breaking down the slate for Week 8. It's winding down. I'm not saying it's winding down yet, but we're getting there. We're getting to the good part of the season, like we said last week, and I'm excited. It should be some really good games. And we were talking pre-show how there's a ton of good games, and Bruce was talking how there's games that we're going to get rid of on this slate. And Bruce, I'll go over to you. How are you doing? And you got to be excited to hook the horns this weekend, go up against Georgia.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. I know that's on the night slate, but night slate's pretty good. It's been good back-to-back weeks, so kind of looking forward to that one. Last week, not too great. I think I had Shuck on most of my teams, and he scored like 12 or something crazy. So looking to bounce back from that. I did have Riley Leonard, and I think I had Bond as well, who got hurt in the first quarter of the Texas game. So that was it's a little rough, but yeah, looking to bounce back this week. I know we have good games tonight too, so just stay in the Discord. We'll have good content for you. I have the playbooks up for most of the slates up this weekend, so ready to go.
Yeah, I think last week was one of my worst weeks in like a little bit. It was the couple weeks before I had some really nice sweats and it was a lot of fun. And then I had one team make a charge, I think, but it was a boring sweat day, right? You look at your teams, you always hope you have like a couple bullets that can at least get towards the top and have a good time. And it was a little boring for me. But Bryce, how was your week last week?
It was not great. We hit Jamal Haynes and like Antonio Williams and those type of plays, but Walker was so popular, and I didn't have him, and you kind of needed him to win last week. And then I had Holstein for 9.7K drop an absolute deuce in the afternoon, so that just kind of killed my teams there. But it is what it is. Move on to the next week, and we have some good games this week to target.
Yeah, I think I had I had Maffa and Haynes both like over 50%. So it was like really nice going into that window. And then it was a brutal end, but that's okay. Hey, we're on to next week and it's a fun week. There's also a good night game. So if you're looking for the night slate, you can go check that out over at Run Pure Sports with the playbook and everything that we got over there. So be sure to check all of that out. But hey, we had a lot of games to dive into. So let's not mess around and get into it and talk about Auburn and Missouri. That's the first game up. SaberSim gives it the what's the total it's got? SaberSim has like 53 about, but I'm scrolling here. We got a 50 on Pinnacle. So definitely going to be a game where there's points scored, right? It's not a game that we're just going to full on fade. Bruce, you said there's some of those on this slate. I don't think that's completely the case, but it's definitely not a premier game on the slate either. I'll say that. It's not going to be in the upper echelon of games we're dying to play. Have some decent price tags, though. Brady Cook at 7.1K. That does feel like a good price tag at quarterback that you can consider a value. Same with Peyton Thorne at 6.6K. And, of course, on pretty much every single slate, Luther Burden. I know he's 8.1K, but he has the ability to break the slate, right? In this matchup against Auburn, I could see him put up 35 to 45 DK points, and I would not be one bit surprised. So, Bruce, this is definitely not, again, the premier game on the slate, but you got to have some plays, I think, in this game to consider in tournaments.
Yeah, I think the main thing I haven't seen lately the injury status of Nate Noel or Marcus. If Marcus Carroll's gonna be RB1 in that game, if Marcus Carroll starts at 4,400, you definitely have to have some kind of interest there because he scored a couple touchdowns and looked great in their last game before the bye. Or before this week, I guess I forgot who they played. I think it was UMass or something last week, but scored a couple touchdowns, looked great. But I kind of think Nate Noel's going to give it a go. So I think you got to consider him for sure in this one, especially because the game's at home. And you mentioned Burden. I like Keandre Lambert-Smith a little bit here, just because Missouri's given up a ton of explosive pass plays, and that's kind of what he does. 6 touchdowns on the year as well. So I have some interest in him along with Burden, but not a ton of interest unless there's some injuries at that running back spot for Missouri.
For sure, Bryce, I'll go over to you. You talk about this game for us because it's clearly going to be a game I think you will have some interest in, but I think there's other games you might like a little bit more. So tournaments, I think you'll have interest. Cash games, I'm unsure.
Cash I think Carroll would be a good cash play if Noel is out here. So, yeah, he would kind of be like the one guy I'd really like here. I don't have a lot of respect for Auburn. Don't really love any of these guys. Lambert Smith is kind of like the one like big play threat that I would really target here. You know, I think there's better options at both running back and quarterback. You know, moving over to Missouri, outside of Carroll, you know, I think Burden's in play pretty much every week. You know, it seems like they've been trying to get him going. He hasn't had like that explosive game, but you know, his touchdown equity is so high in this offense that like when he does finally like hit some big plays and get over the 100-yard mark, I mean, he's going to put up a huge score, obviously. I'm not sure if this is the spot for it, but I mean, Burden's always a good play in my opinion. Cook, there's different directions I would rather go quarterback this week. I don't think you need to pair him with Burden or pair Burden with him. If you're playing him, I would definitely play Burden. You know, Theo Weiss is kind of like the forgotten guy in this offense almost. He hasn't really done tons this season, but he's still explosive and, you know, someone I would take a shot on in tournaments.
Perfect. One game down, a bunch more to go. We got tons of people hanging out watching us, so thanks a lot for being here. Bruce, I'll ask a question in the chat. The freshman from Auburn, is he a maybe? Who is that? I'm assuming you know. It's like probably some stud or something.
Yeah. So they have Cam Coleman, who's probably the one that they're talking about. He's 3,700. Should be good to go. You know, he's 4 targets per game with a huge average depth of target. So, you know, they're going to throw it deep to him. But Missouri secondary has been solid this year, only giving up 19 DraftKings points per game. So I probably play one of those guys in tournaments and move on, just because I think they're going to be trailing here. And but yeah, him and there's another freshman too. I just can't. The name's not coming to me, but there's a couple freshmen. Perry Thompson, I think, is the other guy. Both those guys are, you know, big play guys, but I'm not going to go to them much here on this slate.
All right. Well, that wraps that up. Let's head on over to the next game. This is definitely a game to discuss. Oh, we got Louisville. Louisville let us down last week. Louisville going up against Miami. This one's in Louisville, and Sabres got it at like a 60 total. Let's see what Pinnacle has it. Pinnacle has it at 60 as well. So we are in line there on that. It's got to be a good game here, right? Cam Ward, though, is 10.8K. He's got to put up a massive score to produce at that price, or we have to have a ton of value on this slate in order to make that work. So I'm pretty uncomfortable with 10.8K for my quarterback, especially when I can just play Tyler Shuck at 7.9K. I mean, it's basically $4,000 less. And I mean, I assume he'll bounce back pretty good. So I think that is the way that I would rather go at quarterback in this game. Of course, we got Isaac Brown. He is going to pop pretty well. He was really good last week, 5.6K. Probably not big enough price increase. You also have, of course, Damian Martinez, but, you know, Miami can kind of do like a roulette wheel of running backs there. The receivers is where it's definitely the most intriguing in this game, and it's Xavier Restrepo, 8.2K. He's going to be another spend that people will be considering. You got Ja'Cory Brooks, who we loved him in the 5K range, 7.3K. That'll start being a conversation because it is starting to get pricey. And then Lacey, I mean, it feels like he hasn't had that huge game. Feels like he's been a value at times. It's done okay, but also disappointed. We're still waiting for him to pop a little bit, but at 4.2K, he's still got to be in play. And there's tons of other options I think we can consider here, Bruce, but that's kind of the rundown on this game. Clearly some good plays. How are you attacking it?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Miami's off the bye, so you know, it's a little time to heal up and get ready. I think Louisville played quite a few games in a row. I think they're off week 3 or something. So I think Miami's going to be ready to go here. You know, the thing with Shuck is Miami puts a lot of pressure on the passer, and I think the knock on Shuck over the years has been he gets injured very easily. So it's a possibility he doesn't make it out of this one. But Miami has given up a ton of explosive plays this year on defense. They're really sound in you know, making good tackles and whatnot, but you know, they've just allowed so many big plays. Shuck, along with a receiver like Brooks, who's always looking for that big play. Chris Bell, I love those two receivers. especially with the game at home. Like Cam Ward outside of tournaments, I think I do have him projected pretty high, just because a guy like Kevin Jennings, SMU went in there and just tore them apart. Had 100 yards rushing, almost 300 yards passing. Just kind of a similar quarterback to Ward. So I do expect him to put up some points here, but I just can't get to him outside of tournaments. Just maybe a full game stack or something. But I do like him in tournaments. Running back Martinez, I can't play him at that price. Fletcher, I like him at 4,500. I think he looks like the lead back now to me. Looks better, just a better back. So I don't mind going to him there.
All right, Bryce, we'll go to you. Clearly a spot to like receivers, right? Specifically, receiver seems like the spot that people will love in this game. How are you handling those and some of the other plays in this game?
Yeah, I think Restrepo is probably, up there for – there's a lot of good receivers on the slate, but, he's in the conversation for top overall receiver here. It's just a really nice spot against a bad Louisville secondary in a game that we expect points. He's kind of a route to get Cam Ward. Like if you don't have the money to spend up on Cam Ward, I mean, Cam Ward's put up some huge games this year, but like I can't do it for 10-8 personally. He would be tournament only play for me for sure. And even then I think you're sacrificing a lot to get him, especially when like the pairing that you want with him is also super expensive. So I'm likely going to be passing on him. Shuck, 7-9 for someone who doesn't run, it to me is too much. I think there's a lot of good quarterback options this week, and he just really does not make the cut for me. I'm going to be pretty far under him. I do like the receivers in this game, as you mentioned. Restrepo, obviously. Brooks, I think, is still a play at 7-3. I mean, I'm going to keep buying on him until like he busts. I mean, last week he only had 13 points, but before that, he's averaging, 22 on the season. So I think he's still a play at 7-3. Like once he gets up to like 8K, I wouldn't play him. But yeah, I think Horton is a decent play as well. He's not as safe as Restrepo, but I think he has just as much upside here. And then, I think that's pretty much it for me in this game. I think Lacey's playable at 4-2. He's still kind of waiting on him to have the big game. I do trust his talent. And then moving over to running back, I don't really want anything to do with this Miami split. Definitely defer to Bruce on the Fletcher over Martinez call. And then I think Isaac Brown's in the conversation at running back this week. He's been getting a good amount of volume here, and it's a decent matchup in a spot that Louisville should be able to score some points in.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a good game on the slate. Is it the game of the slate? I don't know if it's the game of the slate, but it's up there, right? There's a ton of really good games. Might be the game in the early window. I would probably say that. Let's go to the next game, though. Talk about Rutgers and UCLA. And I don't know if this is a game we can just breeze past, right? I think Kyle Montague at 7.2K, he definitely could win a tournament go up against this UCLA team. Their defense is not very good. So 7.2K, I think he's got to be in the conversation. And then Dymary Miller, he's definitely been solid at 4K as a value. I've seen him put up some pretty big scores this season. So I think it's mainly Scarlet Knights or bust here, Bruce. I don't see myself rostering James Harden's brother, man. He looks like fat James Harden. It's been a horrible year for Mr. TJ. So I'm out on the UCLA side. I'm intrigued by the Rutgers side, but at the end of the day, this is a really good slate, and I think these guys are going to be under-owned on Rutgers.
Yeah, I think Monangai is probably the only one you can play. It's funny when you look at the receivers, all of them are under 4,200. Just tells you a little something about the game. Both teams want to go slow. Probably two of the slowest teams on the slate outside of Michigan and Illinois, who ironically play each other as well. So I'm mostly going to fade it. I think Rutgers has some issues on the offensive line. I think they lost a guy to injury last week, and we're already missing a guy. So I think I might just take my chances and completely fade it. But yeah, Monungai is probably the only guy you can play. Harden is okay in tournaments. He's still getting the volume. And, if you watch the game last week, Rutgers could not stop Walker. I mean, it was terrible. I just I couldn't watch it for very much longer just because there were so many holes on their defensive line, which is also banged up. I think they had tons of injuries there too. So I don't hate taking chances on the running backs, but other than that, I'm on to the next one.
It's also a 41.5 total. Bryce, so are we playing 41.5 totals?
I mean, you can play Monungai just based on volume. I don't think he's like upper tier play, but I think he's like a good play. I don't mind him here. The price has come down on him a bit, 7.2, to where I don't think it's a bad spot to buy at all. Dymere Miller, I think, is playable. Just, he's cheap. Not my favorite cheap receiver, but like he would make my pool. And then other than that, I'm fading this game. I don't want anything to do with UCLA here. As you mentioned, there are a couple ugly games on this slate that I think it's just like best to take the Tony approach and just like full fade them. And outside of them, this game falls into that category for me.
All right, let's go to the next one. And this is an intriguing one. Speaking of the Tony approach, if you full game stack this one, I think it could be under-owned, and if it becomes competitive, it would probably be the nuts. But the question is, will that happen, right? Problem is Clemson. They are huge favorites, right? And for good reason. They've been great. 21-point favorites is a 57.5 total. But if I told you Virginia put up points, this game would be a great game to get exposure to, right? Cade Klubnik, obviously 9.6K is getting pricey, but we talked about it. He's been awesome. Phil Maffa, 7.5K. It's $1,000 more than last week, but against UVA, you can certainly play him. He's a really strong play. Nice floor, nice ceiling. Williams at 6K. I know he was really good, and they had guys out. I'm sure Bruce will give us a receiver update on how Clemson's handling that with the injuries. And then the Virginia side, I mean, again, if this game shot out, it was a huge one. Malachi Fields would clearly do something probably at 7K, right? You'd have him as an option. You'd have Colin Dara at 6.9K. As an option at quarterback, that would be a pretty good value. And even Kobe Pace, I think, at 4.4K would, if the game does shoot out, right? And it's like, he would clearly be a part of it and be a really nice value to help in that stack. So, Bruce, I'm not saying I'll sit here and do it, but if I run team on Sabre on Saturday morning and I see a game stack of this game with some of the values it provides, some of the studs it could put in my lineup, I don't think I'd be Xing this team out.
Yeah, initially when I looked at the slate, this one stood out just because it's two fast-paced teams and two teams that are pretty balanced. So I like it. I like the call there. I love the game. If it stays close, you could have a really low-owned game stack here. Klubnik, you mentioned. Maffa, you mentioned. Kobe Pace on the Virginia side. He's a former Clemson running back transferred to Virginia. So, he has that revenge narrative there as well. So could definitely play him. Antonio Williams, Brenning Stool, Troy Stellato at 3K. Guy played 65% of snaps last week and 3K. Had 7 targets. So, there's some good 3K guys here on the slate, and he's definitely one of them. And Malachi Fields on the other side, Tyler Neville on the other side. He's tight end, 3,400, had 9 targets last week. He's one of the best receiving tight ends in the country. So I'm in on him. I think he's good in all formats. Way too cheap. Him and Stellato. TJ Moore at 3,300 had 5 targets last week. Almost scored a touchdown. There's just really good plays, especially cheap value guys you can fill in your lineups with, get those studs.
Yeah, I know you mentioned a 3K guy, and honestly, this time of year, 3K guys do start to become a little bit more valuable, even if they put up like 7 DK points. If you hit the nuts around it, you're perfectly fine. So Bruce always puts those in the playbook, though. So if you haven't signed up at Run Pure, you can go sign up. You can see we have a section that literally is just 3K absolute shitters, right? We don't know what they're going to do. We don't feel super confident, but we know what their upside could be and what they can do for your full lineup. Because at times people are just looking to plug those in. And of course, we have all the other stuff. You want the value plays. You want each position, who best plays. We have that listed as well. So Bryce, talk about this game because it's not the game of the slate, but again, I think in tournaments it does have the ability to be. In cash games, I assume you'll be playing some Clemson or at least looking at them, but we'll be looking at Virginia as well.
So in cash, it's kind of interesting. I do want some Clemson exposure, and the best way to get it to me is, Klubnik or Maffa. Like, I probably wouldn't play them together. I know they both got there last week, but that's what happens when you score 50 points. Nice part about this offense is Maffa's not likely to get vultured at the goal line. And if it's not him scoring, it's going to be Klubnik probably. They did have Antonio Williams threw for a touchdown last week, I think, but you can't expect a wide receiver pass every week. I do expect Clemson to put up points here. I have zero respect for this UVA defense. They did a decent job of holding down Louisville last week, but I don't expect that to continue with a step up in competition here against Clemson. I would rate Klubnik. I would rather have Klubnik than Ward this week, straight up. I think he's probably my second favorite overall quarterback here. I did say it's a pretty strong week at quarterback, and there's a decent amount of guys I'm considering, and Klubnik is definitely one of them. I'm struggling between him and Maffa pretty much. I do like Maffa a lot. The guy's an absolute animal. He's priced up to 7.5K this week, but I think he still has a great chance to get there at this price. It doesn't scare me off of him at all here. Moving to receivers, Bruce highlighted some cheap options here. Brennan Stool, I think, is a really solid play. Only 4K for him. Klubnik absolutely loves him. You saw him put up, 100 yards and a touchdown last week, and that obviously always plays for cheap. I'm kind of interested to see if Wesco is going to play here. If he sits out, I think it opens up a decent amount of this offense for guys like Stellato and whatnot. Antonio Williams continues to be a good play, in my opinion. 6K, I think, is a little much for him in this spot, though. I would prefer to play him in game stacks and whatnot. UVA, I think by far the best guy to run it back with is Fields. He's pretty much the only guy in this offense that I trust. But, his price has come down a bit. He's priced very prohibitively for a couple weeks there, but I think he's definitely playable at 7K.
All right. Obviously a good game on this slate, but I promise you, we got good ones coming up, and then mainly in that 3:30 window. Next game up in the 12 o'clock window, and the last game up in the 12 o'clock window is Nebraska and Indiana. It's about a little under a 50 total, and Indiana's 6-0, Bruce. I've definitely seen. I know they were on Pat McAfee this week. I saw some clips on that, and it seems like they're they're basically saying we're going to put up points and we're going to crush, but they're going against AP and Snyder's Nebraska team that they got a great defense. This seems like a way better real life football game than a DFS game. Maybe I'm wrong, but let me know. What plays are we looking at here?
Yeah, I think Indiana is one of the teams that hasn't trailed all year or something like that, along with Army and Navy or something crazy, which haven't seen that in a long time. Indiana football hasn't been great, so it's good to see them play well. I've been very impressed, especially with Curtis Rourke. I think he's 7,400 here, probably too expensive to play because he doesn't run that much. I think he's had some injuries over the years, and just mainly a pocket passer now. Raiola is only 4,700, but that's it's rough to play freshman QB here. He's cheap, but it's still rough, still tough to play him as Nebraska's kind of a running football team. So I think if you play him, you're going to play a receiver with him as well, like Nair or Banks. But I do like Indiana here, especially at home. Rourke. I really love Surratt. He's 5,200, which is cheap enough to play. He's going to have some ownership for sure. A guy that's kind of off the radar of most people is Omar Cooper. He's 4,600. Nebraska is allowing tons of explosive plays through the air, and he's a deep threat. 3 touchdowns this season. I think he's probably one of the better receivers that's in college football right now. No one's talking about him, so I might take a chance on him in tournaments at 4,600. Running backs, it's almost impossible to play Nebraska running back anymore, just because you never know week to week what you're going to get. They just rotate guys in and out. I think Emmett Johnson got most of the carries their last game, and it's just tilting. Same with Indiana. Ellison and Lawton are the top 2 guys, but Black and maybe one of the younger guys can get carries too. So it's tough outside of tournaments to take any shots on these guys.
All right. Bryce, any interest in this game? It's not one that I'm dying to get to, but I think you made a case for some of the plays that Bruce said.
All right, I'll make the case. I'm going to be there tomorrow. It's their homecoming game. My wife cheered there, so we pretty much go to the homecoming game every year.
It?
No, I'm not game stacking this. I don't think Nebraska has any success here. I like IU a lot. I already bet them. So, normally it's like, oh, you just sit out and tailgate the whole game and like don't even go in. But this year IU was so good. We've bet them pretty much every week. I know JVC's had them on his premiums a lot too. So IU's made a good amount of money for us this year. And, I feel there hasn't really been a spot to play them yet. So I'll make the case for Surratt. 5.2K, massive volume, game they want to win. I think they're finally getting some recognition nationally for what they're doing. Even though I'm at the game, I don't love the quarterbacks. Raiola, 4.7K, he does open up some stuff if you want to go there. I don't think Nebraska has tons of success here. Rourke, I do think you can play. Favorite pairing would be Surratt here. Want nothing to do with the running backs. And then I think Banks and Nair are decent like pairings with Surratt for like a nice mini stack here. So likely going to be heavy on the wide receivers and potentially Rourke. And then, as Bruce said, these backfields are impossible to trust. After we played that Nebraska running back against Purdue, I was just like, screw this team. I'm not playing their running backs again. And IU's no easier. If you really did want to pick a IU running back, I would take Ellison, but I mean, flip a coin between him and Lawton. And then, they have other guys coming in there as well. So, I think that running back is pretty strong this week in terms of like guys who are going to get some volume, and I don't really want to go there.
All right. Next game up is I feel like a battle of 2 frauds. Like I'm not sold on South Carolina, not sold on Oklahoma. Everyone, people always try to hype them up a little bit, and I don't know. I'm not excited about these 2 teams. I'll say that. I do like my man, Mr. Hawkins Jr. at 6.9K. He can run, right? For the cheap price, I definitely don't mind it, but I don't need to load up on a stacking partner. If I did, Thompson would probably be the guy. And then, of course, there's Rocket Sanders at 4.7 that he does feel really cheap, but like, it hasn't been a fun ride with Rocket Sanders each week. Bruce, is this a full fade here? I think it's like a 44, 45 total. So it's clearly going to be a battle of defenses or bad offensive play.
Yeah, I don't like the way Oklahoma looks on offense this year, especially with Hawkins in there. It looked really bad against Texas last week. There's no big playability really, especially with Burks being out. He missed last week. He could be back this week. I think he's questionable. So that's something to monitor. They just don't have any big playability outside of Hawkins on the ground when he can break away from people. But this South Carolina defensive line is solid. Tough to run on. So I don't have any interest in the Oklahoma run game really. Barnes is going to be the guy for him, but it's still just tough to play. You mentioned Sanders. He still got 75% of the snaps against Alabama last week, and I think he looked good. He had 78 yards rushing. I think he had 4 catches as well. If I want to play somebody that's cheap at the running back spot, I think it's him, 4,700, and going to get majority of the carries. So goal line work too. So I have some interest there in tournaments for sure. I think he's going to be really low owned. It's hard to play any of these receivers. Mazeo Bennett, 3,600 is interesting. I think he's one of the best young receivers in the game. But other than that, I don't want any part of it. It's a gross game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about the Rocket Sanders stuff. He just tilted me, so it's fair. But and Oklahoma's not like, I'm not scared of them in general. But I listen, I don't want to like run my teams and then I'm, you click on Sabre and you click the filters to see how you're getting exposure to this game and you're like overboard. Like, I don't want too much of this game. So a piece here and there isn't the worst. Bryce, what's your thoughts?
Sanders or bust for me here. I don't think he's a cash play, but he definitely makes my tournament pool here. I just think he has, a decent amount of upside for 4.7. Don't want anything to do with the quarterbacks. These receivers I've been fading all year and am completely content to continue to do so here.
All right, let's go from one game to getting off of to another. I don't really need to play Illinois and Michigan too much, but there definitely are plays here. Luke Altmaier at 6.1K. He's projected on Sabre to be the best play in the game. And hey, as a value, it's not absolutely crazy, I don't think. Loveland, he projects pretty good at 4.6K as well. And of course, you have the fall of Donovan Edwards and Mullings, right? There's definitely something here with Michigan I think you could take stabs on. But again, we look at the slate. We've already had some okay games at the beginning. And later on, there's a lot of good games that we're about to get to where I just don't want to get overweight on this game. Sure, maybe if I have a splash here and there of each guy, it's not the worst, but all these plays are going to be low owned. And if I have like 20 or 30% in my runs, I don't want that much. So I'm kind of staying away from this game, Bruce. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's a good stance to have. This game's going to be slow. Both teams want to go slow. The problem with it is that, man, Donovan Edwards at 5,300 is tough to get away from, especially when Illinois is so bad against the run. I think with Tuttle in at quarterback, they at least have like an ability to throw the football. So that keeps Illinois a little more honest than they would have to be if Orgy was in there or something. So I think the running backs are interesting for sure for Michigan. Because I think this is a bad Illinois defense. We saw it last week. They lost to Purdue, and that little quarterback for Purdue just ran all over them. So I have some interest there in Mullings and Edwards. I like Edwards' price a little bit better. I think he's a great tournament play for sure. McCray is going to get some ownership just because Fagan is out for Illinois, and he is 3,800. So starting running back, they got 60% of the carries last week, is definitely going to get some ownership. I don't know if he's a great play, but Illinois is at home, and Michigan's defense hasn't been great. So got to have a little bit of interest there. Pat Bryant and Loveland are the two receivers I really like here. Zachary Franklin as well. I think they're going to have some ownership just because of the price, and Loveland's going to be the main target for Michigan. They don't have much else. So, that's pretty much it for me.
All right, we got in the chat, we got someone asking, did we discuss tonight's games yet? Not yet, Mr. Sugar for a Dime, not yet. We'll do that at the end. I'll have Bruce give just a quick breakdown. He does the playbook here over at Run Pure Sports, and Bruce, he wants FanDuel. I'm axing that. This is a DraftKings show, right? You see the partnership wherever it is over there, whatever, down by Bryce. I don't know. We're talking DraftKings. So if you want any FanDuel stuff, we always got it on the site. We'll talk about it. You can get in our Discord chat and discuss, but we're talking DraftKings here. And we'll talk about the night slate at the end of the show for a quick little breakdown. Bryce, any interest in Michigan and Illinois?
I think Loveland has a decent price here. I'd be willing to buy on him. I've been fading them pretty much all year. Haven't played much. Without Orgy, I do think that Loveland has some upside for this price. Only 4.6, and he could go out and score 30. The guy's an absolute animal, and he's the centerpiece of their passing offense. So I don't mind him. Don't want any quarterbacks. It is an ugly game. Donovan Edwards is an attractive click at 5.3. Just Donovan Edwards used to be like 8K, and I would be playing him. It's not the same Michigan offense, but I do think that he is worth a tournament shot at 5.3. He still has the talent to bust one or two. So, don't mind him. Rest of this game's full fade for me.
Yeah, I agree with the Loveland thing. And another thing with like these like not so great games, they've definitely made it really possible to like play these games. In the past, they would just like make them like kind of priced out and terrible. Like you definitely have to think about it now for sure. So Loveland definitely is one that I like for sure. Let's go to the next game. We're now in the 3:30 window. We were before at the Michigan game, but this is where it starts to get good. Alabama and Tennessee. But you know, on paper, this game looks like everything you would check out to see, Bruce. You'd say, okay, 56.5 total. That's pretty good for DFS right there. You got Milrow as a quarterback. You got Sampson as a really good running back option you get to, and Nico's not a bad one. You got stud receiver Ryan Williams. You got all these value receivers on Tennessee to pick from. It seems like it'd be a really good DFS game. I actually don't think it's a good DFS game. I could see this game going under and not being as much of a shootout. I think Ryan Williams is pretty expensive. I mean, he's expensive for a reason because he's really talented, but there's other guys I'd rather play in that range. Jalen Milrow, he's 10-8. It's just a really expensive price tag. I think it's going to be really, really gross. Like for like these spend ups, like for instance, Sampson, he's 8.7K. Like when I look at the slate, is that how I want to spend my money for like my top tier running backs? That's all I'm getting at. I'm not saying this game is going to definitely be a bad game, but I kind of think this game could be an uglier game and not pay off DFS wise. So I think I'm going to be more under on this game, Bruce. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's hard to like completely stack it just because, you have Sampson at 87, you have Milrow at 10.5, Nico is 8K, and what has he done this year? Like absolutely nothing. Ryan Williams 74. I think if you play it, maybe you fade a guy like Ryan Williams and try and get the other receivers correct. Jeremy Bernard at 4,100 is way too cheap. Played 100% of the snaps last week, caught a touchdown against South Carolina. I thought he looked great. I know Tennessee has given up a ton, or Bama has given up a ton of explosive pass plays this year. Maybe near the worst in the country. So if they actually let Nico throw the football, I don't hate these receivers like Brazel. Brazel's the deep threat guy. Dante Thornton also there. Both those guys are cheap, 3,600 and 4,400. So I think if I play it, I'm probably just going to stack it up just in case it goes crazy. Because I can see it. Sometimes these SEC games with two explosive offenses just goes nuts. I know Big T's won some money on those in the past. So yeah, I think if I play it, I'm just going to stack it up with like Sampson, Milrow, and receivers that are cheap. Maybe some Ryan Williams, but you don't have to. Bernard is so cheap there at 4,100.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't want to get 10% squirrel right here and 10% Brazel here, and by the end of the day, I have exposure in all my lineups to this game, and I've gone nowhere. Right? That's just the frustrating part about this game. I don't think it's a good one DFS wise. Bryce, are you in agreement, or maybe this is one that you want to load up on?
I think this game has sneaky shootout potential. It's just like priced so highly that like you really do need it to shoot out if you stack it up. I kind of prefer attacking like mini stacks or like just playing some one-offs here. We do have some good one-offs. I think Milrow is fine, to be honest. I think it's a decent buy low spot on him. I mean, the conversation about Bama is just so negative right now. And like, it always seems like Milrow like has big running games and big games. There's no real stats that I have to back that up, but I do think he has a lot of upside here and would prefer him to Cam Ward for upside. Sampson obviously has some of the most upside on the slate. The guy's an absolute animal, and Bama defense has gotten absolutely ripped recently. He's one of the top running back plays of the week. Ryan Williams, I mean, guy's a big play monster. I mean, you need him to get a couple of them at this price, but it's not like 7.4 is completely breaking the bank or anything. Bernard is the most mispriced player in this game. He should be, this seems like an Isaiah Bond situation, a couple weeks ago where you just kind of take the variance and like hope for a couple big plays, but like 4,100, I don't think there's tons of risk in that play. He's simply too cheap for me. And, I think he can have a big game here and has a ton of upside for 4-1. So those are kind of my plays here I don't love anyone else. Tennessee receivers, just it's tough for me to click on them. And, I would like when it comes to Nico, like I would just much rather click Riley Leonard every single time.
Yeah, well, Mr. Town says it best. There we go. He's been bad, and I'm not looking to play him. And I'm sure this will be the week he goes off.
I would play the running game for sure. I think Sampson's a really solid play here.
Yeah, he's just so expensive. I wish I could. I remember he crushed towards the end of the game last week, but he was like busting pretty hard. I don't know. He's a good back. I totally agree. We'll see what happens with this game. I've talked so bad about it now that I know I need to have at least one game stack just to save me, just in case, because I've talked so much shit about it. So there we go. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. Riley Leonard, 8.1K. You just mentioned him, Bryce. There's other values in this game, like Rutherford for 8. You have to like that. Bruce made a really nice call with Jamal Haynes last week, Bruce. So there you go. Maybe you'll like him again. But this is a good game. I think the last 3 games are really like the games I really want to talk about. But this is kind of like the appetizer to those games. So break this one down for us, Bruce.
Yeah, and Haynes King is out. That just broke before the show. So we're going to see some Zach Pyron, 8,400. Running quarterback who can't throw very well. So I'm not going to have any interest in the Georgia Tech side, really. It is a home game for them. I love Riley Leonard. I've been playing him almost every week. I played him last week. He smashed for me. He's just a good runner. I mean, his passing isn't anything to write home about, but he's rushing double-digit times every week. So you love to see that. And they have just enough of ability to pass the football that teams can't stack the box. So, just have to keep playing him until he fails, kind of like Holstein did to us last week. But running backs, I think Jeremiah Love is probably a solid play. I can't play Haynes again. I think Notre Dame's rush defense is just too good, and a lack of a passing threat for Georgia Tech this week is scary to play against a solid Notre Dame defense. I don't have any interest in the pass catchers either on either side. I guess Bo Collins at 3,800 is interesting in tournaments, but yeah, I just can't play it. I don't love this game, to be honest, other than Riley Leonard.
You muted, Travis, but I'll just
am I muted? I'm
go
talking.
ahead here and go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, weird. I think my connection's kind of bad, so I think that was part of it. But anyways, talk about this game.
God, I was laughing at Bruce because Pyron came in last week and he absolutely killed all of my Rutherford shares. The guy's absolute ass. I want nothing to do with the Georgia Tech passing offense here. And I don't think it's a good matchup for Jamal Haynes, as much as I do like his talent. Not going to be a buyer here. It's hard for me not to see Notre Dame steamrolling. I do have a lot of respect for Notre Dame, but you've seen Riley Leonard get there in blowouts this year. I mean, the guy's pretty much the goal line back, or he is the goal line back, and, he has a ton of upside for 8-1. He's my one play in this game, and he's a very strong play at that. I think he's definitely top 4 quarterback this week, like at the price, and he would be my favorite mid-range play.
All right, favorite mid-range play for Bryce there. Let's move on. These are the games I want to talk about because I think these are some fun ones. First one, Maryland and USC. I mean, one of the problems with USC is trying to guess everything right. They're definitely one of those teams where, sure, Miller Moss makes sense as a value at 7.2. Woody Marks, not bad at 7.4. But then guessing the receiver game is never a fun one there. But I always like Zachariah Branch at 4.6 and Lane. I think those guys are in play. Hudson, I know he's got the questionable tag. If he happens to miss, that would help him. And it'd probably help Deuce Robinson as well as like a 3.2K value that you could like. So those are guys to look at. I know Felton's going to grade out really well. He's had some nice performances. Of course, we got Hemby at 5.5. He'll be an intriguing play. And then the quarterback and Billy Edwards Jr. and Miller Moss in that mid-range. They'll definitely be intriguing plays for sure. So, Bruce, this game has, let me find the total on it. It's, what is it? Do you have it in front of you, Bruce?
I know beginning of the week it was 56.5.
That's fine. Yeah,
USC.
Yeah, it's 56.5 still. So you're
Okay.
good. USC is 7-point favorites. So break this game down for us, though, because I like this one more than the last one that we talked about when it comes to the 56.5 totals. So I like this more than that Bama game. But there is a little bit of roulette you have to play with some of these options.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more narrow than in years past for sure. The passing game, at least for USC, which you love to see. I know they're probably going to get Lake McCree back at tight end, but when he's healthy, he plays almost the whole game there, so you don't have much to worry about. Then you have Ty Felton on the Maryland side. He's priced up, but he's definitely going to be owned just because. 19 targets last week. They're likely going to be trailing here, and then Prather got 13 targets also. So, you can just jam those guys in your lineup, one or both. I think they're both good plays. Jacoby Lane as well, 5,300. Mekhi Lemon at 3K. He's probably one of the better value plays of the week. 3K. Dude had 9 targets last week in the slot. This game's on the road, so could see some more there as well. Deuce Robinson, you mentioned, 3,200. He's got 3 touchdowns this season, so I think all those guys are good, solid plays, and they're cheap. Woody Marks at 7,400. Got 83% of the snaps last week. Just the RB1 for USC as well. Can catch the football in the backfield. Actually has 11% target share for USC this season. So if they fall behind, he's not game scripted out, and you love to see that. The 2 quarterbacks, I think Miller Moss is going to have ownership just because he's 7,200, which I think is way too cheap for a team with a 32 team total. Same with Billy Edwards Jr. I don't love him as much just because I think USC's defense has improved, and he loves to throw interceptions. So I do like Moss a little bit more than Edwards in this one.
All right, Bryce, any cash game plays in this 56.5 total here between USC and Maryland?
I think your cash plays here would be Woody Marks and Miller Moss. It's kind of tough to pay 8-9 for Felton, in my opinion. It's doable. I prefer McMillan to Felton this week. I just think it's a better game if you are spending a receiver, but I get it. Felton's gets a ton of targets. He hasn't had a great couple weeks, but at IU, playing Northwestern have not been good matchups for him. This one should be a little friendlier, even though I don't consider USC to be a great matchup either. Don't really like any other Maryland receivers. Prather's been coming along a bit. If you're trying to game stack this in tournaments, he would definitely make those for me. USC receivers are kind of tough, especially if Hudson plays here. It's just kind of seems like roulette as to which one is going to have the big game. It kind of tough to choose. I think that Lane is the best option for upside, in my opinion. I just like him as a player, so he's kind of who I would default to. Woody Marks, I think, is the best way to get exposure to USC. He has a good receiving floor, gets tons of touches on the ground, and I don't think this Maryland defense is anything to worry about here. Miller Moss is a solid option at 7-2. I would definitely stack him because he doesn't run. So, I found myself lower on him than most people this year just because he doesn't run at all. And, I get the play at 7-2, but he's not like an option I absolutely love this week. He's more of like, oh, he fits this team. Great. I'll play him. Edwards, I think, is like reserved to game stacks. I think he gets there like if this game shoots out. He does have big playability. He has a great receiver to pair with in Felton. So I like that. And he obviously runs. So I don't mind Edwards this week.
All right, next game up, another 56.5 total. It's Texas Tech and Baylor. And I love this game. It's definitely going to be one of the better games on the slate for me. Taj Brooks, obviously going to be a good spend. I think he's one of the good 8K running backs that we want to get to. Sawyer Robertson, I think he's a good option too at 6.8K as a value, along with Morton, 7.8. You can pair him up with either Kelly, Douglas, A lot of good ways to go with this game, Bruce. I'm sure you got some cheap plays as well. So break this game down. I think this is one of like the better games on the slate, though.
I think it's the best. Two teams that want to go fast, two fastest paced teams on the slate. So I think it's going to go crazy. I would love it if it went off like one of the old school like Big 12 shootouts that we used to have. I really like Sawyer Robertson. Got that road game against Iowa State out of the way. So going to Texas Tech during the day isn't as bad as playing there at night when everyone's throwing tortillas around and just everybody's drunk. So I don't mind him here. He's only 6,800, runs the football well, has good receivers, one of the best offenses. I mean, it's the same offensive coordinator that had Johnny Football, at A&M, and that was a fun offense. I think Sawyer Robertson can kind of do a lot of those same things. Yeah, and Baylor's given up almost 30 points per game to the quarterback spot this year. So our Texas Tech is almost giving up 30 points per game to the quarterback spot. And Baylor's defense hasn't been great either, and they're on the road here. So I really love it. Taj Brooks, like you said, he's probably going to be the most owned running back on the week. 25 rushes per game, just a stud, 7 touchdowns this year. Baylor's kind of getting healthier at running back, so it's hard to play any of these guys. And even when they're not healthy, it's rough. So I'm going to mostly stay away there. Josh Kelly, 6,800, one of the best receiver plays on the slate. Josh Cameron, also 4,600, too cheap. Hal Presley at 3,100. Dude got double-digit targets in their last game, and he looks the part. Michael Trigg as well, 3,400, wide or tight end, double-digit targets in their last game. Caleb Douglas, the Florida transfer for Texas Tech, is 4K. There's just so many good plays here. I added him to the 3K shitter list as well. Micah Hudson, big play, freshman wide receiver, and he seems to be getting more playing time. So I have a little bit of interest in him and game stacks too. This game should go nuts, and I hope it does.
Yep, I'm with you. Russ, do you agree, or is it 3 for 3 on this?
3 for 3 on this game. I think Robertson's my favorite point per dollar quarterback this week. Absolutely love the spot for him. I just think he's good, and I really do like this game to shoot out. Bruce mentioned how fast both of these teams are. And the other thing is the game's cheap to go along with it. Like, none of these guys are breaking the bank for what you want to do. I do want to target passing offenses here more than running backs. So yeah, I'm gonna be over on Robertson for sure. Morton, I think is playable. I would prefer to game stack it if you're playing him for sure. Like, I would have Robertson on the other side of the quarterback matchup here on almost all the teams that I had Morton with. If I was hand building, and then he's super easy to pair. Just play Kelly. The guy's an absolute animal for 6.8K. He's too cheap in this situation for me. I think he's my favorite option, below 7K, because I kind of include him in the Ja'Cory Brooks tier of not quite being one of these elite receivers that we've talked about or yet to talk about. So yeah, he's kind of a great, I can't afford the super expensive receiver, let's pay down and have some upside type of guy. So I really like him. On the Baylor side of the ball, I think almost all these guys are playable. Bruce highlighted a lot of them. I think Presley will be the most popular of them. He's been getting absolutely peppered with targets, and he's basically min price. He's 3-1. I think kind of had the ball drop on his price a bit. I think he's one of the best sources of salary relief on the slate. Trigg is playable as well. And then, I think Cameron's, definitely playable as well. It's just a really good game. And for the prices, this has the same total as Bama, Tennessee, and you get them at literally half the price. So I think it's a very good game target.
Yeah, I love the way you can get exposure to this game. It's when you look at it, you just feel like the way the pricing is, you have to get exposure to it on the slate. So I'm going to have a lot of exposure. I'm going to be well overweight. It's definitely my favorite game. But this one's a good one too. The next one, it's Colorado and Arizona. Last one on the slate. And Bruce, it's a 58 total. It's one of the higher totals on the slate. And there are some expensive tags, right? Shadir Sanders 9.3, Travis Hunter 10K. But if we have enough value, that's not that hard to get to. And those two can easily break the slate. Then you got McMillan 8.3, really good option. And then we start getting some sat relief. Fafita at 6.2, Conley at 6.7. I think he's a great running back option here against this Colorado team. And then of course the Colorado receivers, you can mix in Wester, Horn Jr., Shepard, all pretty good prices. Hayden at 4.1. I mean, this is another really good game, and it's probably, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's either that one or the one we just talked about. Those are the two top games for me. I'm not going to be winning any money at the start of the games or the 3:30 games. I'll be trying to catch you guys. So I hope the early games bust way more so I can catch you with this game. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. This game should be nuts. The pace looks okay. Both teams are going to pass the ball. Colorado 66% passing, Arizona 60%. So you love the clock stopping here, and just getting ready for the next play. So I know Colorado's getting healthier at wide receiver. Looks like Horn's going to be ready to go. Hunter's going to play. I know he left last week's game with the injury, but should be ready to go. Wester at 5,600 is too cheap. Will Shepard again 3,900, too cheap. You even have on the Arizona side Montana Lamonius Craig, which is the dumbest name to say. I don't know what that name is, but he's 3,400 and he's a former Colorado receiver. I think Dion got rid of him at the beginning of his time there or somewhere around there. So I think it's a good little revenge narrative for him. And then you have McMillan, one of the best receivers in football, 8,300. It's going to be tough trying to jam a game stack with McMillan and Hunter, but you mentioned Fafita at 6,200. He's just way too cheap. I had to manually lower his projection just because he was hitting every single lineup. Whenever I jammed him in Saber Sim, he's going to be owned, but not crazy because there's other good quarterback plays on this slate, and he doesn't really run that much. So I think if you play Fafita, you're going to jam one of these receivers in there with him, McMillan or Lamonius Craig, or even Keon Burnett, their tight end. He's 3,800. Dude's been getting crazy targets the last few weeks. And I think he looks the part as well. And it's against Colorado, who has no defense. So a interesting leverage play would be Quali Conley, the running back for Arizona. He's getting crazy volume, 69% of snaps last week. And I think he's looked good too. So I think that's a fun little leverage play. I think he'll have some ownership at that price just because of the game environment. But I like him a lot.
Yeah, I love the Conley play. He's definitely going to be one of my favorites in this game and on the slate. So, Bryce, I'll go over to you. Give us your thoughts on this last game.
One of the best games of the week. Probably the game I'm looking most forward to watching on the slate. From a DraftKings perspective, Bruce highlighted how expensive all these guys are outside of Fafita. I think it's pretty tough to get away from him this week at 6'2". He's not the biggest running quarterback, but, I expect him to have a lot of success in this game. So really like him. Sanders is probably the easiest cut for me of the expensive guys in this game. Like I would rather get Hunter and McMillan shares. I think, if Hunter wants to win the Heisman, I think this is a big week for him being like, oh, I'm the two-way player that can play defense against McMillan and looks like we might have lost Bruce here, but I'm sure we'll get him back soon. That can play defense against McMillan and contribute on offense at a Heisman level. So I think this is kind of like a statement game for him if he wants it to be. So I like Hunter. I don't worry about his defense as much as some of the discourse I've seen this week. McMillan gets pretty much doubled every game. So, if McMillan's not getting doubled, I think he can beat anyone in single coverage, and that includes Travis Hunter. So I really like McMillan in this spot. Conley is kind of my other play in this game. Bruce highlighted how much volume he's had recently, and I think he's too cheap. And, I think if there's one play in this game that goes overlooked, it's likely him, just because everyone's going to be wanting to play Fafita. And, teams or people don't like to play the running backs with him. So I think he's a great contrarian way to get access to this game. And, I think he's cash viable as well. It's a really nice spot for him. Other Colorado receivers, Will Shepherd's kind of come on here a decent amount. I don't mind him. I think Webster's, he's scoring a touchdown pretty much every week. So, his price has gotten up there a bit, but I think he's still viable as well.
Yep, definitely going to be a fun set of games. I love this 3:30 window going forward. It's going to be a good time watching them. And then we get to go into the night slate, which, Bruce, before we give our plays of the day, give the people a little night slate cap. We got Oregon on the slate, which is going to be a super fun game, obviously. Them versus Purdue. But what's some of your thoughts here on it?
Yeah, it's definitely the best Friday night slate we've had in a little bit. Florida State and Duke. I'm interested to see how the new quarterback plays. I watched a little bit of their last game, and I thought he looked okay.
They benched DJU finally?
Yeah. He didn't get benched. He actually hurt his wrist or finger or something. Maybe he had surgery. But yeah, I think he looks a lot better than what DJU looked the first couple of weeks. It is on the road there at Duke, so it's that's gonna be a good one. I think the game's probably gonna be pretty slow. 42 total. Oregon and Purdue. I think Oregon should win here. Purdue's defense has been terrible. They're going to play a lot of man-to-man defense, a lot of man defense against these Oregon receivers. So I like these Oregon receivers to go nuts. And then Oklahoma State travels to BYU with a new quarterback as well. They finally benched Bowman, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays. That's a tough road trip. I think BYU just rolls. He got Lassiter. He's too good. Lassiter and Chase Roberts. So I think BYU rolls there. And the last game of the night, I think, should be a solid game too. Nevada, I think they're playing really well. And I love their quarterback, Brendan Lewis, and their running back as well. I think they're able to run the football at home. That's another hard place to play at Nevada. It's a fun little stadium, and it gets loud at night as well. So, solid slate of games. I have the playbook up. Projections are in. Even have some good props for this evening. So, definitely ready.
Yep, get in there. And hey, if you like, the underdog, the prize picks, Bruce always posts that as well. But let's get to plays of the day. Bryce, I'll kick it to you first. Who do you got for the main slate? Who's your play of the day?
I'm going to switch it up this week. We'll go with the quarterback, Sawyer Robinson. I think it's a super good spot for him. And, with Fafita being so cheap, I hope he kind of goes overlooked here.
Yep, I love Robertson. He was one guy I was considering. So I have another, though. Hopefully Bruce doesn't take it. We'll see. If you take it, that'd be shocking. But we'll see. Maybe you take it. Let's go to you, Bruce. Who do you got? Who is your play of the day?
I'm going to go with Riley Leonard. Just going to keep riding that train. He's been putting up 30 bombs for me, so I'm going to keep going with him.
All right, good job, Bruce. If you guys would have somehow both stolen the two plays, that would have been very crazy. Even though, again, I think they're not like 2% plays or anything, but I do think this guy's low owned, and Bryce talked about it a little bit, how you can leverage with him. It's Mr. Conley for Arizona. I like him as a running back option. He's a really nice price too. I actually think the mid-tier construction, there's a lot of really good plays in the mid-range where I might pepper some of those plays and then like grab a cheapie and grab a stud and call it a day. So Conley, I think, is a really strong play. And I like those mid-tier quarterbacks, like playing like Fafita and like Robertson. I think a lot of people are going to like those builds, but they're going to be good builds. So, but that's why I'm going to go to Conley. He'll be a nice little leverage at 6.7K, but that will wrap it up for us. Nothing else really to talk about. Just we got the night slate, of course, we'll have tomorrow, which Bruce, what are the games in the night slate? Tell the people on why they should sign up to check out the night slate tomorrow.
Yeah, we have Texas, Georgia's the big one. I think I'm always negative about my team, just because I don't believe it I won't believe it until I see it, until they're in the championship game. But I think they're going to have a tough time with Georgia, just because we haven't played an offense like Georgia has. So, if you look at the rankings of the offenses that they've played so far, it's been tough. Really, really bad teams. And then we have LSU and Arkansas, UCF and Iowa State, Kansas State, West Virginia. I think that could end up being a good game. Iowa, Michigan State, I don't want to touch. Kentucky, UF, it could be okay. And then SMU and Stanford, that game could be solid. A couple really good offensive games there. Playbook's pretty much up for that one. I'm just finishing it up. Have it done by tonight.
All right, Bruce will take care of that. We will get on out of here. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the College Football Print Factory Show. We will see you next week for Week 9. But until then, for me, Mango, Bruce, and Bryce, we'll see you guys later.